This video contains content that some might find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. To be a taxi driver is to accept the premise that you can literally pick up anyone. And with that comes an obvious element of risk. But what if, by the time you realize the stranger sitting in your back seat is possibly dangerous, it's too late? For our narrator, he'll see what happens when he's literally in the driver's seat when he doesn't want to be. I'm Ryan Bergara, and this is Are You Scared? A show where I tell my friend Shane Madej the internet's scariest stories that may or may not be true. Now, I have not read this story before, and neither has Shane. So lock your doors, turn off the lights, and let's see if we can make it until the end. The Passenger. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Saturday night. I had just dropped off my last passenger for the day, and as I began to drive my cab back towards work, I imagined my soft, cozy bed that I knew was waiting for me. My eyelids grew heavy. It had been a full day of picking up and dropping off people, as it normally was on weekends, and all I wanted to do was call it a night. I struggled to keep my eyes open, straightening my body and rubbing my eyes to stay awake. But when I awoke to the sound of a car horn and found the car halfway on the other side of the road, I knew it was time to pull over. I drove to a street I knew was almost always deserted, especially at this time of night, and took a short nap to re-energize me for the drive home. I parked under a dimly lit street lamp and let sleep pull me under.
A precarious situation to begin with. Sleeping in a car anywhere is, it's usually a last-ditch effort. I slept in my trunk once on New Year's Eve, but story for another day.
You gotta. Well, I think it's a story for now. I think you should.
It's time for the spooky stories. It's Are You Scared?
I think it's time for you to tell the story. Why were you sleeping in the trunk of your own car?
It was very cold, and I needed to be warm.
That's the story?
Ryan, that's all I can say.
It felt like I had only been asleep for a few minutes when I was jolted awake to the sound of loud and frantic knocking on the car door. Disoriented, I blearily looked around to see who had woken me up. It was dark, and it took a while for my eyes to acclimate to my surroundings. But finally, as I turned toward the rear passenger door, I could make out a shadowy figure. In that moment, I couldn't tell you why I did what I did. Maybe it was a cab driver's impulse. Maybe it was because I had just woken up and my sleep-muddled brain couldn't catch up in time. Or maybe it was just because I had never been the sharpest tool in the shed. Good self-burn right there.
Yeah. No ego to this person.
You're asleep in your car on the side of the road. Somebody knocks on your door, even if, and let's say you're Shane Madej, the cabbie.
Oh, wow.
You opening the door?
Wait, hang on. Let me shut up. Let me get into the role here.
Oh my God. Okay, well, there's a nicer way to say that.
Ooh. I got the beads behind me. I got the beads back here.
What do you got hanging on your mirror?
I got a rosary. I'm deeply religious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I got
Any kind of air freshener of some sort?
I got one of the hula ladies,
I think we've set the stage here enough. You're a cab driver.
What a long day of driving. But these folks don't got no respect for a guy like me.
And then you hear,
hey, who's that?
And you look up, and you just see a shadowy figure.
A shadowy figure?
Yeah, you say that out loud. You letting them in?
Yeah, come on in, pal. Where you need a ride to?
Here's what I would do. I would not let them in. Whatever the reason, I unlocked the car doors. Looking into the rearview mirror, I heard a click and saw the car door open. The person entered the car and shut the door. Once in the car, I could see the person was a woman. Her face was shadowed, but I could see that her long dark hair draped over a white nightgown, the only discernible feature I could make out in the dark. I turned around, about to say something, probably to inquire why this woman was on a deserted road in the middle of the night, when her hand suddenly shot out towards me. My eyes darted toward the hand. Alarm bells were ringing in my head as I prepared myself for a physical assault, but all movement stopped once the hand had fully been extended. I registered that she was holding something between her thumb and forefinger. It was a piece of paper. She held it midair, offering it silently for me to take. I stared, my eyes narrowing in confusion and mild suspicion before I reached out and hesitantly accepted it. In the distance, I heard the faint rumbling of thunder. It was about to rain soon. Cautiously, I examined the piece of paper. In the darkness of the car, I couldn't inspect it as thoroughly as I wanted to, but from what little I could see on the piece of the paper, scribbled out in a messy scrawl was an unfamiliar address. Out of muscle memory, I entered the address into my phone's GPS and found that it was less than a half-hour's drive away.
I think this man is being entirely too polite. Because if I'm this driver and this spooky lady gets in my car, I'd shine my probably cell phone light in her face and be like, sorry, can't see you back there. You're looking awfully spooky. How's it going tonight? Do you mind speaking up a little? I can't hear you.
I mean, white nightgown to me means either this person's in some serious trouble or going to cause some serious trouble.
Yeah. What if you out-creep them?
I mean, I'd like to see what you mean.
You just sort of turn around and wink and go, sorry if it gets a little smelly in here.
Oh, and then you just shit your pants.
Yeah.
In fact, you might not even have to out-creep them. You might, just shitting your pants here might save your life.
Right,
they hand you the address and you just go...
You probably have to shampoo your car after that. But,
yeah, but I mean...
but you'll be alive to shampoo your car.
I turned around in my seat and faced the woman, wondering what her deal was. A moment of unnerving silence. I turned back to face the wheel, her eyes burning into the back of my head. This whole situation was very strange, but no matter how bizarre I found the circumstances, I couldn't bring myself to stop. Something was holding me back. An unsettling feeling deep in my bones told me to just drive and not question anything. Reluctantly, I pulled into the street and started driving. The atmosphere in the car could only be described as tense. Then, it started to rain. As I continued driving, I found that my eyes kept flicking towards the rearview mirror to look at the passenger. I had the most inexplicable feeling that she would disappear at any moment, but no matter how many times I looked, she was still there. She remained unmoving, like a statue, almost as if she wasn't even breathing. Every little sound now seemed intensified within the silence. The little pit-patters of rain dropping onto the surface of the car, the creaking of the car wipers as they swiped from right to left, and the telltale clicking of the turn signal when I came to a junction. All these tiny sounds, which would normally go by unnoticed, now made me very uneasy. I reached for the radio, hoping to fill the silence, but was met with prickling static. Dismayed, I turned the radio off and decided to fill the silence the only other way I knew how, by talking. So, I know it's none of my business, but what's got you taking a cab at this time of night? Got a meeting to go to? I tried to joke. The air was still as I received no response.
He's making it worse, I would argue.
What is he supposed to do?
I've gotten into plenty of lifts where neither of us speak, and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, but this is so much different than that.
I mean, I've never gotten into a lift in a long white nightgown in the middle of the night. Sure.
No, and I know for a fact that you don't wear that white nightgown out. You only wear it when you go to sleep in our ghost investigations.
Only wear it on our ghost investigations, that is correct.
And that's, I think you had said, because it tricks the ghosts into thinking.
It fools them. That's science.
This place must be real special if it's got you out of the house at such a late hour. I tried again. Dead silence. You got someone waiting for you there? Anyone who knows you're out here? At that question, I finally got a response. One which made me regret speaking up at all. It was a low growl. Something you would normally hear a frightened animal make. It stopped me dead in my tracks. I forced my mind to focus on driving so as to not crash the car out of shock. Now this delights me. I'm not. This is a top tier response to this situation by this lady.
I'm imagining less of a guttural like, and more of like a, you know.
Oh, you're imagining like a cartoon dog, like a like maybe some saliva falling out of her like jowls. Yeah, like that. That is funny. What do you say, by the way, to that?
If I'm the cabbie, I say, "Yeesh, sorry I asked."
Look, when someone growls at you, the options.
They're there. All bets are off at that
countless.
point. Yeah.
Then you can do whatever you want. That's where pooping your pants is appropriate, maybe.
Yeah. That's probably the poop cue.
The rest of the journey was spent in deliberate silence, as I didn't dare ask any more questions. I was scared of something else happening, something more ominous than just a growl. Reaching a traffic light, I tapped my finger on the steering wheel restlessly. I stared at the red light with bated breath, willing it to just turn green so that I could get to the destination and drop off the passenger as soon as possible. Looking around, I realized the rain had gotten heavier and was now pouring onto the streets. I glanced at the rearview mirror, expecting to once again see the vague silhouette of the passenger. But what I saw instead made me turn around in horror. The face of the woman was now visible under the well-lit streetlights of the cross junction. I breathed in sharply as I saw that the whole right side of her face was bright red, covered in peeling burn marks and blistering skin. The wounds looked fresh, as if they were only recently inflicted. In silent terror, I noticed the blank stare of her glossy gray eyes gazing into the distance. Her pupils were hollow and unfocused, void of any emotion. I felt a chill go down my spine as her empty, soulless eyes turned towards me.
This guy's rude. This guy's rude. He's a rude creep. This lady sounds like she's had a night. And now she's got this guy. First, he's been badgering her. She's probably like, boy, I can't wait to get home and put some, triple antibiotic on my face or something.
Yeah, get some Neosporin on this bad boy.
He's turning around and going, oh! Oh!
Well, I don't think he did that.
It sounds like he did.
Well, let's see how he responds.
Okay.
I couldn't stop myself from letting out a horrified gasp. Well, maybe he did go, oh! I realized my mistake as soon as I made it. The empty, soulless eyes hardened, then came to life. There was now a burning fire in that previously vacant stare. I had angered her. Not her, my mind supplied. It.
As far as I can tell, he's like, oh, this lady's burned. You know what? She's a monster. He called her it. Please, have some compassion.
To that degree, then, you're saying that when someone sees Freddy Krueger, that they should be compassionate.
Okay, yes, if I saw a man in a striped sweater with knives for fingers and burns on 100% of his skin, I might be like, okay, well, obviously, that's a nightmare man. Sure.
The same hair-raising growl from before snapped me out of my stupor, and I floored the gas pedal, traffic light be damned. I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins as I drove with reckless abandon. With sweat dripping down my face, I directed my attention to the splash of my car tires against the rain, which was now coming down in buckets. I forced my eyes onto the puddles of water on the road, ensuring that they didn't drift towards the rearview mirror. I didn't know what I would find if I looked, and I definitely didn't want to find out. I drove and drove, my mind in a mental state of disarray. All I could think of was getting to the drop-off address. We were now in the hills, and I drove my cab as quickly and carefully as I could around the winding turns in the rain. Suddenly, it was a straight road. With each second, I built up courage to add a bit more gas, hoping to reach the destination faster. The little bravado I had left flew straight out the window when I was forced to immediately hit the brakes, my hands tightening around the wheel to brace myself. I had driven right to the edge of a cliff. There was maybe around 3 feet of ground between my car and the edge of what I assumed was a long way down, and I let out a shaky sigh. I checked my phone to see if this was the right location, and to my relief, it was. All of a sudden, I heard the click of the car door opening, the sound of the pouring rain in the open air. Then, the car door closing. Even while hearing all of this, I kept my head strictly towards the front of the car, facing the cliff.
Did she pay him?
I'm gonna assume at this point he just wanted her out of his car. At that point, I don't think he's thinking about the buck he has to make.
I've been on her side up until now, but if I'm him, I might be not like laying on the horn, but I'd give a, you know, like, hey, it's a half hour drive.
I could see in the periphery of my vision that she was moving slowly in the rain, and I watched in trepidation as she walked directly in front of my car and stood right at the edge of the cliff, her back facing towards me. There was a mild ringing noise in my ears, and my heart was beating out of my chest. The winds were howling, and I held my breath for what would happen next. It all happened so fast that I almost missed it. A flash of lightning struck, followed by the deafening roar of thunder, and then she was gone over the ledge. I stepped out of the car, moving towards the edge carefully with my phone in my hand. I used my phone as a flashlight and peered over the cliff. There was nothing there but wet rocks and sand. I drove home that night, shaken to the core. I had never believed in ghosts before, but after that night, you could say that I was a lot more open to the idea. Despite my exhaustion, I got no sleep that night. I would never sleep in my car again, and I would never tell anyone what happened. Some days, I feel like the events of that night are just a distant memory, but I never let myself get comfortable enough to forget. Whenever things get too convenient, I open the glove box and pull it out. It being the note from that night, solid and firm in my hands. It's a harsh reminder that everything I witnessed was real, and I hadn't just imagined it. I keep it as a warning to always be wary of the passengers I pick up, because I can never know if the passenger I have in my car at that very moment could be my last. So, are you scared? Well?
Cool to time it with the lightning. It's like some David Blaine stuff.
Anyways, let's find out if this story is true or false. The passenger was submitted to us for this show by Fatihah Malek and is a true story. No, it's not. Here's the author's note. Fun fact. This story was actually written based on an alleged true story that my cab driver told me. The main differences between this story and his are he had actually been slapped awake instead of the knocking on the car door.
Slapped?
Yeah, I guess physically slapped.
Jesus.
Wake up! I know you don't believe this story is true. I can actually believe that maybe someone picks up somebody. They think it's a person, it's not, they just disappear. I actually think that is possible.
I wouldn't call it a true story, and I would never believe any story any cabbie told me ever. You can't trust me.
Watch who you're sitting next to. Good night.
And if you're a cabbie, don't just open your door for anything.
I can't hold this smile forever.
Just let people live their lives, frankly, and be nice to
just say sweet dreams.
Burn victims.
Just
sweet
say
dreams.